In this video, I want to give a few hints on how to complete Programming Assignment 1, Phase 1 in mobile device programming. If you take a look at the module Android Studio Unit Testing GitHub, down towards the bottom is a video, Make Android TDD Unit Test Pass by Creating a Stub. That's essentially what we're doing in this assignment. I have provided you with a project that has a unit test and has some interfaces, and your job is to implement those interfaces into a series of classes. When you implement those interfaces into classes, you'll get some methods that are defined in the interface that you have to implement as well. Implement those methods, do it right, and the unit test should pass. If the unit tests pass, then you're in good shape in this project. So there are 6 unit tests. They're split up into 2 different files, so 3 per file. So first of all, I just want to point that video out. That's a good reference to use. Now let's take a look at the assignment sheet. At the top of the assignment sheet, little table of contents and all that. I just reinforce here that this is phase 1 of the individual assignment. You only need to complete one of the 3 phases. Phase 1 is due first, and it's also the easiest and takes the least amount of time. So I encourage you to do phase 1. If you've done phase 1, you don't need to do 2 or 3. So we go on down, and a little class diagram, and essentially what we have in the project that I give you is kind of the, not everything that's in this UI package, but at least one screen. There's a user DTO class. There's an interface here for iUser DAO and an interface for iUser service. So the stub does not exist. The service does not exist. The stub here does not exist. The DAO here does not exist. And then these individual screens do not exist. So in phase 1, your job is simply to make user service stub and user DAO stub and make sure that user service stub implements the iUser service interface. Make sure user DAO stub implements the iUser DAO interface. That's the job for phase 1. Phase 2 is to simply build out this user interface with these screens. Phase 3 is to come back to our DAO and service layer and add an actual user service and actual user DAO that's hitting a database. The stub classes don't have to hit a database or access anything external at all. They're just plain old Java classes. So if you're comfortable with Java and just know the basics about how to open an Android development environment, you're in good shape for phase 1. Okay, so development required completed for you. We have here a URL that we need to clone, so I'm going to copy this into my clipboard. Now, down here, it goes through instructions on how to clone the project. I'll walk through that as well. So instructions on how to clone the project, then a description of what is already in the project. A class called user with some attributes, and it's in a package edu_ucdto, an interface iUser service with these methods defined, and an interface iUser DAO. So this is what is in the project that you will get automatically. Now, we come down here, and this is the grade sheet that I will use to grade your project. I would like you to grade yourself as well. So when you turn in your project, I'd like you to take this page and just kind of grade yourself. If you did something to completion, give yourself 10 points out of 10. If you worked on something but didn't get it all the way done, give yourself something that's greater than 5 but less than 10. If you didn't do something at all, go ahead and mark a 5 out of 10 and I'll give you half credit for being honest. Now I will say if you give yourself 10 out of 10 for something you didn't do, I'll mark it down to a 0. So just be honest if you didn't do anything on a certain item, and then I won't look to grade it and I'll give you half credit. So that's the way the self-grade sheet works. Don't forget to turn that in. If you do turn it in, it will help me to give you partial credit because I'll know what to look for. If you don't turn it in, there's no opportunity for partial credit, so your grade will be a little bit less. Now, business logic layer and data access layer, these are the instructions that I would like you to do in the project. So I won't read them step by step because I kind of want to take a look at what the project will look like. But essentially, go through these bullet points, and this is how to complete the project. Now, I've opened Android Studio, and let's say that I want to bring in the project that I've created for you. So I would go up to File, and then New, and then Project from Version Control, and then we'll say GitHub. So File, New, Project from Version Control, and then GitHub. Give it just a moment. Okay, I'm going to Control V and paste in, we'll just add .git to that. Okay, I just need to change my directory, no problem. Okay, a little bit of subfolder magic and we're good there. So remember, this is the URL that was in the instructions. You can also open that up in a browser if you want to take a look at the project itself. So here we have it in a browser, and you see clone or download. That will give us that. It will give us that exact same URL that I pasted into Android Studio just a moment ago. So either way, however you get it, either way it's the same essentially. So I choose clone, and now we'll give it a moment to run. Now, one thing I'll tell you is it's probably a good idea to look at another project that you have. Go ahead and say this window. Take a look at the build.gradle file. Reason being that the build.gradle file is where it says the version of the Android SDK that the project requires. The one that I'm using might be different from the one that you're using because these things change all the time. So it will likely prompt you and say, do you want to download this other SDK? You can do that if you want. The other option is you can go and just tweak the SDK version in the build.gradle. If that doesn't make sense, don't worry about it. Just follow the prompts. But if you did want to try a different solution, that's a different solution. I clicked on the event log here. It says, okay, I don't know what these are. No problem. I'll just go ahead and remove them. Go ahead and let's see. For this one, Fielder's choice on this one, I'm going to remind me tomorrow to stay with my version of Gradle. Should work well in either version. I'll go ahead and say remind me tomorrow. And we'll go ahead, we see Gradle builds running. We'll let that keep running down towards the bottom for a few more moments. This probably will take a couple of minutes. While it is running, I'll double shift, show you that build.gradle file I was talking about. So we want the one that's in app. And you see here it has our compile SDK version, our min SDK version, target SDK version. That might be different from the project you use. I've used this project for a while because it works very well. So if I look at another project I have, I can look at the build.gradle file for that, and I can see, okay, maybe that has some different versions. That's what I say. You can make the project that you've cloned look like one of your projects from your computer, or you can download the SDKs that match the project that you've cloned. Whichever works for you will be fine. Okay, build successful. So I go to the Java folder here, and under edu.uc, you'll see the things that I have provided to you to start your project. So the interface for iUser service, the user DTO with several attributes and getters and setters, and notice they're not expanded. It doesn't normally look like that. The DAO has the iUser DAO interface as well. Okay, so what do you need to do here? Well, we go back to the instructions and we remember this will walk you through and say to make a class called user service stub, which implements iUser service. It will tell you what should happen, what the logic should look like, so on and so forth. So essentially, follow these instructions. But let me show you something else that is really handy and will really help you know that you're doing the right thing. Look at the folder called test. And you see there's a user DAO test. Now let me click on that and take a look. It redlines. There's a compile error. It doesn't know what user provider stub is. Okay, I go to user service test, and guess what? A similar thing. This one doesn't know what user service stub is. Okay, so this is a test first design project. And when I talked about the video that really applies to this, the video from our test driven design learning module, this is going to walk you through step by step how to make these unit tests compile and run and pass. And when they compile and run and pass, if they all 6 turn green, then you're in really good shape. Once they compile, to make them run, you simply right-click and choose Run. And then once they compile, it'll bring up a little bar that will be either red or green. When I'm grading your project, that's exactly what I'm going to be looking at. I'm going to be seeing if those bars are green or red. So in other words, you have the exact same grading script that I'm going to use, so that'll give you a really good idea of how you're doing in this project. Okay, so I don't want to do the project for you, but if you've gotten to this point, you're in pretty good shape. I will go ahead and do the first step for you here. So the ultimate goal is to get these unit test classes here compiling, running, and passing green. If we need to get this one, let's see, this is user service test. If we need to get it to compile, what do? We look at the red line and we see cannot resolve symbol user service stub. What that means is we're trying to create a new class called user service stub here, or rather, we're trying to create a new object of that class. But the class does not exist. So we go back to our instructions, and we have a user provider stub here up above in the business logic layer. Class user service stub implements iUser service. So what we need to do now is follow these instructions to make this class and have it work. Let me just give you a little hint there. I know it needs to implement iUser service, so I'm going to right-click on the service package, choose New, and then Java class, and we said user service stub. Now interface, look at this one, iUser service. I know I've covered interfaces in several videos, so if that's a new concept to you, I encourage you to go back through the videos from this class and take a look at the interface videos. So I choose OK. Go ahead and add to get, sure, that's fine. You see it gives me a red line because iUser service defines several interfaces and user service stub has to provide an implementation for them. Okay, so Alt-Enter, implement methods. We have logon, save, and get user. Notice it does a really good job of putting Javadoc up there for us. We go back to the programming assignment, and we see that there's a logon method, there's a save method, and there's a get user method. So this tells you the logic to put inside each of those methods. So just take my description there and make each of these methods do that. Okay, I will save. I go back to user service test, and now we can fix our compile issue. Because you see, it says, oh, okay, I don't know what user service stub is, but now I can hold Alt, press Enter, and I can say import class. Now we can go find it because we've made it. What used to be a red line is now black. Now take a look at this. If we want to run all of the unit tests, we can press the double arrow here, and we can say, okay, run them all. It'll build, and then it will, if it can, it will give us results. But notice that each of the methods that has the @test annotation also has a greater than, like a play symbol. So we can run the test individually as well if we want. Okay, so what happened here, it was trying to build, it could not build because it also is missing this other class user provider stub. User provider stub is in our other test suite, the user DAO test. So what you need to do to make that pass is go ahead and make that class, put that class in this package DAO right up here, have it implement iUser DAO, very similar to the model that I used down here. So what I did down here, essentially do the same thing up there, and then go back to the instructions. The instructions will tell you what to do with each method, but the ultimate thing to do when everything's compiling is to right-click and run these unit tests and make sure that you get the green bar. So I hope that's helpful. If you run into any issues or questions, just drop me an email and I'll be happy to take a look. Thank you.